A very good evening and welcome to yet another edition of the program Times Exclusive, airing on Times Network. My name is Brian Banda. Glad that you could join us tonight in this edition of the program. The program tonight is coming to you courtesy of Rainbow Paints.
I love brilliant green on my walls. I love signal red, sweet lime, electric blue. I just love golden yellow.
You get all that and more at Rainbow Paints. Imagine a water-based paint that is water-resistant. Imagine a paint that is absolutely washable to remove dirt. And it guarantees you 10,000 cleaning scrubs over its lifespan without losing its luster. There can only be one paint that does just that, and that paint is acrylic sheen. Get yours today at all leading hardware stores. Rainbow Paints. Peace of mind. Part of the deal.
My guest tonight is Dr. Sunduzwayo Madise. He's the Dean of Law at the Chancellor College here in Zomba. Doctor, we are not shaking hands. Welcome into the program tonight.
Thank you for having me.
We are meeting after so many things have happened. We have had the Constitutional Court ruling on February the 3rd, and so many things have happened. What is your interpretation? Are we in crisis or not? Looking at how things are happening in the country.
Yes, we're in a crisis. We can't pretend we're not. We're in a crisis because, like you have said, we had a judgment of the Constitutional Court.
Yeah.
The court made specific orders, one of which was the fact that Parliament had to pass certain laws, and Parliament includes the President, because the definition of Parliament is the National Assembly and the President. Those laws have not been passed.
Come again on that one?
The definition of Parliament is not my definition, it's the law.
Okay.
So the law says Parliament is the National Assembly and the President.
I thought the President is part of the executive.
Yes, but he's also part of Parliament.
How?
That's what the law says. So the MPs, which we call MPs, members of Parliament, they are members of the National Assembly. So when what we say Parliament is meeting, that is the reason why the President opens it as head of state, not as head of government or head of the executive, as head of state. He opens it. The MPs now meet as the National Assembly. When they make a bill, they want to pass a bill, they have to take it back to the President, now as head of state, not as head of the executive, to sign it. So when the court says Parliament, it includes the President as head of state and the members of Parliament as the National Assembly. That they were supposed to have done their job. They have not, collectively. Of course, we are aware that the National Assembly did pass those bills. We are aware that the President did not assent to those bills. The law gives him the power not to assent if he is not happy and give reasons. And we are aware that those reasons have been given back to Parliament. So that has not been done yet. It needs to be done for the processes to go ahead. I'm saying that it needs to be done because if, for example, we have an election and someone gets 50% plus one, then the issue of what happens next doesn't arise. But let's assume you have an election and no one gets 50% plus one. Then you have a problem. You'd have a problem because there will not have been subsidiary legislation, or there will not have been acts of parliaments that operationalize that 50% plus one. And that is where I'm saying that we have a problem. We have a further problem in the sense that, looking at what has been happening, there seems to be some tension between the executive branch and the National Assembly, which should not really be happening. Ideally, it should not be happening. They should find ways of coming together and resolving their issues. But if you read the views of the President in his refusal to assent, you can see that there's tension there. That's why I'm saying that we have a crisis. But it's not a crisis that cannot be solved.
It can be solved. We'll talk about that and on how best we can solve the crisis. But you still maintain that the country is in a crisis?
Legally, yes.
Why is President Mutharika refusing to assent the bills that came from Parliament?
He has given his reasons. And like I said, the law gives him the power to assent or to withhold his assent. And all the law says is that he must then give reasons for withholding his assent. The law doesn't say much about those reasons, but they just say he must give these reasons. And when he does give those reasons, the reasons must be sent back to the clerk of parliament, through the clerk of parliament, to the speaker. And if parliament deems it fit, they will discuss it again, taking into consideration the reasons.
Okay.
Now, if parliament discusses them and passes the bills again, this time the president has no choice but to sign them. So it is a way of checks and balances, of where you are saying, because the president does not participate in the day-to-day debates of the National Assembly, but he's part of parliament. So it's like a way of checking the National Assembly to say, have you passed the right bills? So the president is actually saying, no, I'm not happy with ABCD. Can you look at that? But if the National Assembly looks at ABCD and is still satisfied that what it did was correct, now this time the president has to sign. There's no choice.
Was the Constitutional Court judgment clear enough?
It was very clear.
It was very clear?
It was very clear that the parliament had to do its job.
Okay, so...
The reason why it was clear is because after the Constitutional Court made a decision of 50% plus one, the court immediately realized that there was a problem. And the problem was that we did not have laws that would operationalize it, in the sense that if we didn't get 50% plus one. Now there's been some confusion here. And I also heard some parliamentarians also saying that, which I think was misleading the people. For example, after the last bills were passed, some people were saying, oh, no, the 50% plus one has not been passed. No, that's not correct. You don't need to pass that. The court already declared. It is the law already.
Even without passing it?
No, because the passing is not about the 50% plus one.
So if it is already a law, why did the court say Parliament discuss this?
Discuss the operationalization. To say what happens if somebody does not get 50% plus one. But also what happens now, because the life of, for example, the life of the National Assembly will have to be extended. They have to be extended because the Constitution says that the elections must be tripartite. Meaning, when next we're going to have an election, we're going to have an election of the president, of members of parliament, and of councillors. Now, if we do not make any changes, what will happen is that 5 years from now, the president will have to be re-elected, but the MPs would have had to be re-elected a year earlier.
Okay.
So that would be confusing. So that was also some of the things that they were supposed to do, to ensure that there's harmony between the three. In other words, the life of this parliament would be extended by a year, so that when we come to the next election, things are back in line. But also issues of the debt, setting up a proper debt. Because if you notice that the date of the election is set in the Constitution. But because of in this particular case, where the court made several orders, there would have to be a date set. You just don't decide. The dates are set.
Now, Parliament did discuss and deliberate on these matters. They set up a date, 19th of May.
Yeah.
Now, weeks later, Malawi Electoral Commission comes to the public and say, we cannot adhere to May 19, we are setting for July 2.
Yeah.
Does the Malawi Electoral Commission have powers to set dates on their own?
The law says that, so the law defines when the elections are going to be held. But if for whatever reason the elections cannot be held on that particular time, the law allows the Electoral Commission to postpone as long as it is within a set period.
Okay.
So that is allowed. Because there may be a disaster on that particular day, or there may just be a problem.
Okay.
So if it's within that period, there's no problem. However, here, there is an issue in which the court specifically directed the Electoral Commission to hold the elections within 150 days. Yeah. So, in other words, the court has given the Electoral Commission power to set up a date within 150 days.
Okay.
Now, what had happened was that the idea that should have been done by Parliament. So that was where the Parliament had set 19th May as a way of doing that. But should that fail, as long as the date that the Electoral Commission sets up is within 150 days, there's no problem. Just for this particular election. Just for this one.
Just for this one?
Just for this one. After that, we have to go back to the Constitution.
Now, the signing of the bill, when it returns to Parliament, Parliament deliberates. They are given 21 days for them to be signed. Would that be okay with the deadline of 150 days?
That I have not done the mathematics, and it also depends when Parliament meets.
Yeah.
Because the law says after 21 days in which the President has withheld his consent, has assent, and he has sent the bill to the Speaker through the Clerk of Parliament. 21 days after that, Parliament cannot meet.
Okay.
It must meet. So it's like a cooling off period.
Okay.
To make heads level-headed. So after that 21 day, they must meet, but they must meet within 3 months.
Okay.
So that's the tricky now. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but
it's a crisis
what
of sorts.
about these processes if they surpass the 150
Then we have
deadline?
then we have a problem. So ideally, the right thing would be for the Electoral Commission to go back to court and says, look, we can't have it within the 150 days because of A, B, C, D.
President Mutharika is also saying that he cannot fire the current crop of commissioners, including the chairperson. This is happening after the court gave powers to Parliament to vet their competence. Parliament has done its job. President Mutharika says it's laughable to fire them. Your thoughts on this one?
My first thought was the use of the word laughable was unfortunate. You cannot describe the actions of Parliament as laughable. They are not. They can never be. Parliament is part of government. They cannot be laughable. In fact, to me, it was actually unfortunate that that thing was even reported, because we got it through a reported speech. It should not have been reported. Even if the president had said it in private, it should not have been told to us. To me, it's unfortunate. However, let's go to the substance of the issue.
Yeah.
The law gives the president the power to take recommendations. They are recommendations, so Parliament does not have power to fire them. So there are recommendations which are given to the president, and then the president can make a decision. The president has made his decision and is entitled to make that decision. But here is when you now have further part of the crisis.
Yeah.
You now have a situation where an electoral commission is deemed to have problems or to have been incompetent by the court, or the court didn't expressly say so. But the way the court said its views about how they conducted the election points to incompetence. In fact, the fact that...
And this is why I keep on asking you, was the judgment clear enough in some of these aspects?
Oh yeah, it was clear. Look.
It was clear?
It was clear. Look, there are no ambiguities here.
Okay.
If a court nullifies an election,
yeah,
it shows there were those incompetence at some level. Either there was incompetence, there was negligence, or there could have been even electoral fraud. Now, the court didn't go into those specifics.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But the fact that an election has been nullified, and nullified in the manner it was, in which, for example, the court looked at the evidence, and the court says, we can't accept this. Clear that is incompetence. We don't have to even beat about the bush.
Yeah.
So the court says so, but because the court realizes that it's not up to us to declare incompetence, the court refers the matter to Parliament, which is the right arm of government. Parliament having interviewed, and we all listened.
Yeah.
We have our own views, but we all listened and made our own views about the competence of the Electoral Commission as a body. Parliament recommends that not just the commission is incompetent, but each of the commissioners need to be removed. So they send their recommendations to the president. But this is where now you have a problem. You now have a problem where two arms of government do not have confidence in the Electoral Commission, but only one arm of government has confidence. And it even gets worse. It gets worse because the person who now has confidence is also a candidate, or is going to be a candidate in the next election. Then all of a sudden, it's about checks and balances. It's about issues of transparency and accountability. It's about conflict of interest. Yeah. There is a conflict of interest here. Although the law does give the president power, I think the law, when it was being formulated, never thought that would have these types of situations. In fact, this is a learning curve for the law to say, maybe we need to have changes in the law to make sure that things like this should not have to happen. So ideally, after 3rd of February, when the Constitutional Court gave the judgment, that would have been the right time. If I was president, I'm not president, I don't aspire to be a president, but for the president to relieve those officers. I'm saying this because now it is common ground that, except I think for the chair, the rest of them are going to have their tenure running up until the 20th of June.
Yeah.
So clearly, even the 2nd of July election, if it were to be held on that day, these commissioners would not be competent to have it in terms of their tenure.
Okay.
Their tenure would have expired, meaning after 21st June, they are no longer going to be commissioners. And already you have a problem there. You have a problem because now the law says the president must consult leaders of other parties and appoint electoral commissioners. The problem you now have is that all these people are now active participants in an election. Now, all of a sudden, you've further confused an already confused situation.
Yeah.
Because you now need to have commissioners who are going to be trusted by everyone. And that's not going to be easy. But it is possible. It is possible, in my view, that maybe the president can call his compatriots, the leaders of the other political parties that are represented in parliament, meet at a round table, and come up with a list of commissioners which all of them will accept. And if all of them accept, the chances are the Malawians will accept.
Yeah.
But if this current situation, because the current situation is not tenable, it's not tenable because of the fact that 20th June is just around the corner.
Yeah.
So we already need to start making preparations. That's why I go back to the 3rd of February. That would have been the right time
To fire them.
to fire them and appoint a new one.
Okay.
It's not ideal, but at least that would have been the right time. You fire some, you retain some.
Yeah.
And maybe the president would give reasons to say, look, you cannot fire everyone. You need a little bit of institutional history. Or we could get commissioners who performed in the past.
Yeah.
We have done this before. The retired Chief Justice Sosa has come time, I think twice, to be chair of the commission. And she knew what to do. The point is to bring in a set of new commissioners at this particular time may be problematic. So we could go back in history and say, who performed well?
Yeah.
Can we tap from those? So that could be possible.
Now, let's quickly talk about the 50+1. Meg says the current, the coming elections, they will not use 50+1. I want to tap your understanding.
No, it can't be.
It can't be?
No, it can't be. I've heard where the chair of the Electoral Commission, who's a judge of the Supreme Court, saying they're going to use the decision of the Supreme Court in Gwanda Chakwamba versus Attorney. No, she can't. The MEC can't.
She
No, they can't. That's not the way the law works. And she knows.
How does the law work then? Because she says that the Supreme Court is the
You cannot decide that way because there's a specific case in which the Electoral Commission was made a party to, and that's the current case. This would be a different case where you now have a case of some parties, then you have another case of some other parties. Then you are now a third party and you are saying, that issue may concern or may not concern her. This issue directly concerns MEC. The court made specific directions to MEC. The court made a specific interpretation in relation to a case in which MEC is a party. So if I throw back the question at you, if MEC says they are going to use first past the post, why are they appealing on that ground? Why are they appealing? Because that's the way the law works. You are not happy with the decision. Even if your ground says there's another decision which is different from this, you don't disobey it.
Okay.
You obey it, but you appeal, citing the other one to say, look, there was a mistake here. Look at the other decision. It's up to the higher court to make a decision. MEC is not a court. It may be a tribunal for electoral purposes at that lower level, but it's not a court. Justice Ansah may be a judge of the Supreme Court, but she's not sitting there as a judge. She's there as the chairperson of the Electoral Commission. She cannot interpret the law.
She cannot interpret the law?
No, not as chairperson of the Electoral Commission. The job of interpretation of the law in Malawi is for the judiciary. We all can interpret it in a way of everyday language interpretation, where how do you understand it? But we cannot go around trying to challenge courts and try to say, oh, this court, that court. No, that's not our job. That is the job of the judiciary. That is the reason I understand that President Mutharika, as well as the Electoral Commission, have appealed, so that the higher court can make a determination. But for the Electoral Commission to say they will use first past the post, no, they cannot. If they continue to do that, they will be held in contempt. They will be held in contempt.
So they are standing on not a very strong ground.
I don't
Shaky ground?
No, they are not standing on any ground at all.
They are not standing on it?
On that point?
Yeah.
No, they are not. And I think Justice Assent knows.
That she cannot use that?
No, she knows. She knows better. She's a judge of the Supreme Court.
Doctor, we have to take a short break. We'll be with you in a moment.
Okay.
In case you're just joining us, you are watching Times Exclusive, airing on Times Network. My name is Brian Band. I'm joined by the Dean of the Faculty of Law at Chancellor College here in Zomba, Dr. Sunduzwayo Madise. We'll be back momentarily.
I love brilliant green on my walls. I love signal red, sweet lime, electric blue. I just love golden yellow.
You get all that and more at Rainbow Paints. Imagine a water-based paint that is water-resistant. Imagine a paint that is absolutely washable to remove dirt. And it guarantees you 10,000 cleaning scrubs over its lifespan without losing its luster. There can only be one paint that does just that, and that paint is acrylic sheen. Get yours today at all leading hardware stores. Rainbow Paints. Peace of mind. Part of the deal.
This is Times Exclusive, airing on Times Network. I'm joined by the Dean of the Faculty of Law at Chancellor College in Zomba, Dr. Sunduzwayo Madise. Welcome back to the other half of the program.
Thank you.
Now, I want you to be very open and to explain to our viewers. So the courts have given us 150 days.
Yeah.
In the event of us failing to hold elections within the given 150 days, it may be because of the corona and other matters, what happens then?
Okay. The elections must be held within 150 days. That's the order of the court.
Yeah.
Orders of the court are obeyed.
They are obeyed.
They are obeyed. You don't obey them, you're going to face contempt. You know, the court is not in the habit of playing around. I have read and heard people saying, "Oh, the opinion of the court doesn't make opinions." When a judge says, "In my opinion,"
Yeah.
this is, don't take it as an opinion.
Uh-huh.
It is actually a finding and an order.
Uh-huh.
So when people say, "Oh, it was the opinion of the court," oh no, it was an order of the court.
The court doesn't give opinion.
Oh no,
it gives orders.
It gives orders. So be careful with the language. The court is not in the business of massaging egos or trying to please people. No. The court gives orders based on the facts, based on the law, and based on the evidence that was presented. Coming back, the court ordered the elections to be done within 150 days, or to be held within 150 days, meaning preparations must have started. In other words, preparations should have started on the 3rd of February. Or let's be realistic, because the judgment ended up being read late on the 4th.
That's where we
should have started
up and running.
Had no excuse. Even when they were appealing, they should have already started up and running, putting the electoral cycle kicking. But it may be possible, like you've rightly said, that the elections are not held within 150 days, or may not be held within 150 days. Maybe we don't have the proper law yet, the proper law, the acts of parliaments to operationalize any issues, or because of the coronavirus, for example. The Electoral Commission can go back to court.
Who should go
the Electoral
to
Commission?
Or the Electoral Commission?
Because they were the ones ordered
to
hold an election within 150 days. So they can go back to court and tell the court that, look, we can't hold the election because of ABCD. Now, if it is the issue of the laws, it can go back to court and says, look, the laws that will make us move have not been enacted. Whether the court will find good merit in that will depend on the way the arguments are presented. Or they could go back to court and say, look, we can't hold it because there's a state of national disaster that has been declared. And the court, as an arm of government, takes judicial notice of the fact that the president, as head of state, declared a state of national disaster. So that won't be debatable. It will be up to the presentation to go to the court, and if the court is satisfied, the court may extend it, the time. Obviously, May could have to give the court a new timetable if they are aware of that the pandemic is ending. But look, the pandemic may not end soon. So May can say, look, and we suspend at this particular day and we extend by that particular day. The court can make that type of order. But it will depend on the arguments that are presented before the court, and it will depend on the evidence that the MEC is presented in court. So yes, MEC can go back to court and ask for an extension of time.
How do you understand the declaration of the national disaster?
Okay, so the declaration of national disaster is one in which the president is empowered under law to declare a state of national disaster where there is a disaster already, or where
there is
a disaster already, or where there is likelihood to be a disaster. So a disaster is impending. I am saying this because others have said, no, the president should not have declared because we don't have a case of coronavirus yet. It may be true we don't have a case of coronavirus yet, but that doesn't mean the president cannot declare it. And the reason would be, if you look around us, all the countries around us have coronavirus. It has been identified. So if it has been identified, you might say that, look, if it does not hit us in Malawi, good for us. God is looking out for us. But it may just be a matter of time. So if we can get certain things done, we always know prevention is better than cure. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. However, there are certain things that you can do under a state of national disaster, which you cannot do unless you have declared a state of emergency. So for example, the derogation of rights. So for example, the right of freedom of movement. Now, if people are told it will minimize the movement, that is fine. But if people, for example, if there is a curfew imposed, you cannot impose a curfew under the
state of disaster.
No. It has to be a state of emergency, because now you are derogating rights. You are limiting rights. For example, right of movement, the right of the usual freedoms that we have taken advantage of, in which you have seen in other countries that people are being limited. Or you can't go out to drink, or you cannot go out to church, or you cannot do this. Once those restrictions kick in, they cannot kick in under the state of national disaster. They must be kick in under a state of emergency, because the powers there are different. The Constitution does allow for that to be happening. However, the Constitution does say that the High Court has powers to, for example, to see whether when a person has been detained, for example, for refusing, let's say, a lockdown, have they been properly detained? Have they been unfairly detained? If you've seen around in other countries, people are being beaten up. Should they really be beaten up?
No.
Should their rights as human beings being taken away just because you have a state of emergency? I would say no. The dignity of a human being should still be there. So those are the things that our law says. Even in that state, the High Court still has power to review decisions that are made in relation to how people are being treated. But for a declaration of state of emergency to be made, the president has to consult the Defense Committee of Parliament.
He can not just do it on his own.
No, he cannot do it on his own. The national disaster, he can. After he does that, the minister must gazette it, and then he must inform Parliament. That's different. So if you put it in terms of weight, you'll say that the state of emergency has more weight, and rightly so, because it deals with a lot more things, including war, including insurgencies. So it is much more heavier in terms of the issues it looks at, as well as the benefits.
Coming back to the elections, Meg and President Mutharika appealed to the Supreme Court. What should be done as we wait for the appeal?
In terms of what?
In terms of preparations.
Everything must go full steam ahead.
Yeah, but it is the view of these two entities to say that let's wait for the appeal first. Then we'll go full throttle if the courts goes ahead or not.
Yeah, you would say that because they did, at least I know the Electoral Commission applied for a stay.
Yeah.
In the High Court, or there was an application for a stay in the High Court, which was thrown out, or was dismissed. The court says, no, we'll not grant you the stay. And essentially the stay was saying, look, as we're appealing, please let's stop everything until we hear from the High Court, from the higher court, which is the Supreme Court. The High Court said no, on the basis of what was presented before it. They were not happy. And like the law allows them, they appealed to the Supreme Court on that basis. So they applied to the Supreme Court for another stay, and the law allows them. And the Supreme Court refused to grant them a stay as well. But even when they were applying, remember what I said, from the 4th of February, it should have been planning and doing everything according to the electoral calendar. So me as a person who teaches law, I was a little bit surprised that MEC was spending so much time trying to resist these, trying to issue statements. If you look at what was happening after that judgment, there was like a state of denial.
Yeah.
That should have started. We lost a lot of time. We lost about a month. We should have been full steam there and then. We lost about a month. Now, it's also something I fail to understand, and this is the fact that why is Mike Leader appealing? Mike is a referee.
I was coming to that question to say, do you think MEC is being fair? Because President Mutharika and his Democratic Progressive Party is an interested party in this election.
MEC is not.
It is the considered view of many that think that Malawi Electoral Commission, they are almost doing everything together with President Mutharika and DPP. Is that how it should be?
Okay, I'll say this. It should not be like that. In fact, they should not prosecute their appeal together, because the interests are different.
But they seem like they are traveling together.
I have to read the documents to fully understand that.
Yeah.
But I noticed that a little bit of that in the High Court when the matter came to the Con Court, and I was a little bit disturbed.
You were disturbed?
Yes, I was a little bit disturbed in the manner things were being done, because it's important that the Electoral Commission is seen to be independent even in this particular case. It's important. Like you've rightly said, Professor Mutharika, as a person who was a candidate and as a person who was declared as the rightful person to become president in 2019, he has an interest, because the nullification of the result affects his victory.
Yeah.
So he has an interest. But I go back. The law is that the Electoral Commission is essentially, if you read it properly, a referee. They are brought in a case to help them understand what went right and went wrong. Now, if an arm of government tells them, this is what you did wrong, should they really be saying, no, you are wrong? No. Because that's the impression being created now that they've gone to the Supreme Court, and the impression being given is that they want to argue. You are a referee. What are you arguing? Let the people who are concerned argue it.
Yeah, so to answer my question was, make right to appeal.
Whether they are right or wrong may not be the issue.
Okay.
But in my view, MEC should not be appealing. MEC should not be appealing.
Because it's just a referee.
They're just referring. They're being told where they went wrong. So what are they going to be arguing? That they were right to do the wrong thing? I'm not saying they cannot raise an appeal.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court most likely will hear them. But me personally, as a person who teaches law, I have problems to say, what are they protecting? What rights are they protecting? They are a referee. A court has told them, you did ABCD wrong. You should not have done it this way. To me, all they should have said is, thank you. In the legislation, we'll do better.
Yeah. Let's talk about the legitimacy of President Mutharika. He's riding on the 2014 victory. His mandate finished in 2019. Now, the court said we should redo the election.
Yeah.
Is he legit?
Yeah, he is. Because the law says so.
Okay, okay.
The law
But
says
he's
so.
riding on the 2014.
Yes, he's president by virtue of the 2014
elections.
And that raises issues.
Okay.
It raises issues because does he have the full power of a president who has just been elected? In my view.
Come again?
Does he have the full power
Yeah.
of a president who has just been elected? My view is no.
He doesn't have the full power.
That's my view, and I'll explain to you why. Imagine what happened after the president, for example, dissolved the parliament, after parliament was dissolved, and he dissolved cabinet. If you look around that, and if you go back to, during all the past presidents, from starting of President Morozi, the President Mutharika, President Banda, J. Banda, and now President Mutharika, if you look at them, during that time, they don't do much. In fact, they're not seen around.
Okay.
In terms of presidential powers.
Yeah. When you have dissolved the cabinet.
And when you, parliament. Because at that time you are now saying, we are now setting off for the new coming president.
That's right.
It could be him.
Yeah.
But at that point, his term has expired.
Okay.
He's now like caretaker president. It's just that we don't use that word, caretaker.
Caretaker president.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's caretaker because he's taking, as a person, he is in charge of the presidency. So although his term has expired, he is in charge of the presidency because there can never be a vacuum.
Okay.
But he's waiting until the new one is elected and sworn in. Because you cannot have gap.
Yeah.
You need someone to, in case something happens to the country. I'm saying that because it then begs the question, should that type of president be appointing a new army commander? I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No. To me, this is my point.
The caretaker kind of a president.
Yeah, it should not. And I'll explain to you why. Ordinarily, positions like army commander, positions like inspector general, and other positions usually kind of go in tandem with the president. Because the president wants to have the confidence of the people he has. So you can imagine what would happen if we have an election and someone else becomes president. And then he wants his own army commander. He wants his... That would not be good.
But why is he doing that?
Because the law says he can.
But
the law gives him...
He doesn't have the full power.
No, I'm saying, in my view...
In your view, yeah. He doesn't have the full power
to
be appointing...
No.
Does that mean including appointing cabinet?
That is a problem. I'm saying that is a problem because of the fact of the duration.
Okay.
Because ordinarily, you need cabinet. They all should be cabinet. And this is interesting because I've heard people say, oh, cabinet has been dissolved, including this network and other networks. No, cabinet can never be dissolved. The Constitution says they shall be cabinet. In the same way, the president cannot be dissolved. The presidency can never be dissolved. All you do is you remove people and you put people in. Or you populate cabinet and you depopulate it. You can never dissolve cabinet.
Doc,
because there must be always cabinet.
Yeah.
But that said, it's the timing.
Okay.
Ordinarily, you want the period in which there are no people in cabinet to be very short.
Okay.
So here, because of the timing,
Yeah.
you may say that, look, if we don't have cabinet, things will essentially be at a standstill.
Yeah.
But even when I'm saying those appointments or the appointments of an army commander, in my view, it is a little bit awkward. It is awkward in the sense that it puts the people who are holding those positions in a kind of jeopardy. Because if somebody else were to come, they may be removed. Because the president has the power to do that. And sometimes we want that little bit of continuity.
So why is President Mutharika making these appointments knowing that we have elections in the new... He may win, he may lose.
Yeah, but he's entitled to do those.
He's entitled to do those?
He's entitled to do that. I'm just saying...
He can't wait?
He could wait if he wanted, but you can't force him to wait.
Are you optimistic about all these processes? There are so many legal battles. The Malawi Electoral Commission, we talked about it. Was it supposed to be neutral? Is it supposed to show that it's siding with candidate A and B? Are you optimistic about all these things? Are we going to come out victorious as a country?
Interesting. Whether we come out as victorious as a country is interesting. I'm saying it's interesting because throughout our cycles since 1994, What have we reduced to what we call democracy? We have reduced it essentially to cycles of elections. So it's what is called institutional democracy. So every 5 years you have an election. Then you move on, you have an election. Then you move on. To me, democracy is much more than that. It's about checks and balances. It's about accountability. It's about what happens every day.
Yeah.
It's about access to information, for example. It's about the rule of law throughout. It's about transparency. It's about making sure that the people who put people in power, who are essentially the citizens, are entitled to the best. So, for example, if they pay tax, the tax is used for their own good, not that some people are using it for their own personal gains. To me, that every day happening, to me, that's the idea of democracy. But coming back to your question, I would say that the law has a way of resolving issues.
The law has a role.
The law has a role, and it has a way of resolving issues. I'm saying that because the law will not allow a situation of chaos.
Okay.
Where the law realizes or sees that there's going to be chaos, the law will step in and try to put order. And the way the law does this is people make applications normally to court.
Okay.
And then the court will make several orders. But the whole point is the law will not allow a situation to become ungovernable, or a situation to become so bad that it actually defeats the very purpose for which we were doing all these things. And if you look at the court and the last decision of the court, in the Concord decision, the court went back time and again to the Constitution. Time and again to the Constitution. So everything is grounded in the Constitution.
You are teaching lawyers, but when all the lawyers you have taught, and they have graduated from your university, MEC goes to South Africa, hires lawyers from there, leaving all the graduates that you have birthed into the public. What does that tell you? It gives you confidence that you are producing good lawyers?
The confidence aside, to me it's scandalous.
It's scandalous?
Oh yeah, it's a scandal.
It's a scandal?
Yeah, it is a scandal. Look, MEC is entitled like anyone else. That's where you should, to hire anyone as a lawyer. But I'm saying it's a scandal because we have competent lawyers in this country, highly competent lawyers. Lawyers of top notch, who can stand their ground against any lawyer in the world.
In Malawi?
In Malawi.
Yeah, but MEC leaves all those.
That's what I'm saying.
It's
a scandal. It's a scandal on several levels. It's a scandal because of the message that is given about these lawyers, these highly competent lawyers I'm referring to.
Which ones? The South Africans?
Not our local lawyers.
Okay.
It's a scandal because they've been snapped. But it's also a scandal because should we really be spending 600 million kwacha on an appeal? Just for you to understand it. The Malawian lawyers, all of them who are representing the first and second petitioner, I think there are about 12 of them, including some of them highly eminent. Those ones, in total, their bill, which they have proposed, is 348 million. After a trial of about 6 months. After volumes and volumes, if not tons and tons of documents. After arguing their case for hours on an end. All of them, 348 million. Now, 2 or 3 lawyers are going to come for an appeal that is likely to be over in hours, and they're going to be paid 600 million. It's a scandal to me. It's a scandal to me because of that, but it's also a scandal because we did a little bit of research of who these lawyers who are coming are. And sorry, I wasn't very much impressed. Now, a resume on its own doesn't mean the lawyer is competent or incompetent in terms of how they're presented. But sometimes you look at it.
Unfortunately, time is not on our side. In case President Mutharika is watching us tonight, in case Dr. Jane Ansah is watching us tonight, and Malawians are watching us tonight, what would you tell them?
I'll tell them that Malawi is more important than anyone else.
Malawi is more important than anyone else?
Yes. We had Malawi before them. We had Malawi before all of us. We'll have Malawi after all of us. What should happen is, what should matter is, what legacy will we as individuals leave in which the future generations can remember us by?
Dr. Sunduzwayo Madise, Dean of the Faculty of Law. I wish I could have taken your hand, but thank you very much for joining us tonight.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, on that note, we wrap up this edition of the program Times Exclusive, airing on Times Network. In this edition, I was joined by the eminent lawyer and a teacher of law at Chansa College in Zomba. He's actually the Dean of the Faculty of Law in Zomba, Dr. Sunduzwayo Madise. My name is Brian Banda. From all of us here at the Odd Capital in Zomba, wishing you the very best of the evening and goodbye.